Jimin is on the wrong stage in a foreign city. Jungkook catches up with him and hugs him without a care for the camera. No, this isn't right, Jimin whispered, frozen under a blinding white spotlight, the cheers around him thinning into a confused hum. The stage was wrong, eerily so. The lighting rig above him hissed like a waking serpent, too low and too blue. The backdrop screamed someone else's concert, neon skulls and jagged electric letters that did not spell asterisk banked in asterisk. The crowd, though massive, didn't sing the fan chants he'd known by heart for a decade. Their chants were foreign, offbeat, and their confusion was palpable, rippling through the sea of faces like a virus. Jimin's breath caught. The in-ear monitor hissed with static. A voice was screaming, "You're on the wrong stage. Get off, Jimin, get off now." But it was too late. Too late because cameras were flashing. Too late because the crowd had recognized him, not as a guest, not as an artist slotted for that set, but as a mistake. And then, from the edge of the chaos, a figure sprinted toward him, weaving past stunned security and baffled stagehands. "Taehyung," Jungkook's voice cracked, his chest heaving as he finally reached Jimin. Without a word, without apology or hesitation, he threw his arms around him, tight, desperate, shielding him like the world had just turned hostile. The audience gasped, a flash storm of phones capturing the moment. A misplaced star wrapped in the arms of another, mid-meltdown, mid-mystery. Jimin didn't speak. His body shook, not from fear, but from something older, deeper. A memory of standing alone at 13 under a roof collapsing with expectations. A moment where he had once gotten lost in the wrong dance studio and had been too afraid to ask for help. This was the same echo, only louder. "Why are we here?" he murmured into Jungkook's shoulder, his voice barely audible over the roar. "I don't know," Jungkook replied, but the steel in his arms said, "But I've got you." Backstage was pandemonium. The real artist whose stage they'd interrupted was furious, staff were screaming in multiple languages, and the press were already speculating. Is this a surprise collab, a marketing stunt, or sabotage? Jimin was trembling by the time they were rushed into a side corridor, cameras still chasing their shadows. The door slammed behind them. Silence. Jungkook locked it, then turned to Jimin, his jaw clenched. "What the hell happened?" he asked, not accusing, not angry, just scared. Jimin blinked, eyes wide, disoriented. "I thought it was our stage. I followed the signs. It had our logo. I swear, Kook, it did. It had our asterisk name." Jungkook's breath hitched. They changed it. Someone changed it Jimin. And just like that, the silence became suffocating. Jimin's mind raced. There had been oddities all day, mislabeled doors, rehearsals postponed, a schedule that felt scrambled even to staff. A backstage assistant had looked at him weird earlier, as if surprised to see him there. Sabotage. The word clung to the walls now, thick and foul. Jimin looked down at his trembling hands. "They want to break us." Jungkook stepped forward. "Let them try." But behind his confidence, there was something else, a shadow in his eyes. Jungkook had seen something Jimin hadn't. He was hiding it for now. Later, in the dim security room, they watched the footage. The sign that led Jimin onto the wrong stage was clear and deliberate. "That wasn't there yesterday," their manager whispered. And then the video glitched. A single fleeting frame flickered. Jimin leaned in. "Pause it, go back." The frame was there again. A silhouette standing behind the curtain, watching Jimin. Unmoving, anonymous, but familiar. Jimin's breath caught. "I know that stance," he said slowly. Jungkook looked at him. "Who?" But Jimin didn't answer. Couldn't. His pulse thundered in his ears. Because if he was right, if that person was who he feared, it meant the threat wasn't from the outside. It meant the betrayal was already inside their world. And it had a face. A name. And a reason. Jimin stepped away from the screen, sweat slicking the back of his neck. He had been set up. But why? What did they want? Jungkook was still watching him, unreadable. "You know something," he said quietly. Jimin hesitated. And then finally, he nodded. I think this goes back to Busan, he whispered. Jungkook's eyes darkened. So it begins. You think this ties back to Busan? Jungkook's voice rose, echoing through the narrow concrete hallway like a gunshot. What the hell happened in Busan that you never told me? Jimin flinched not from the volume, but from the sharpness beneath Jungkook's words. For a second, he looked like he might deflect, lie, or even collapse. But then he exhaled, slow and ragged, his chest rising like someone surfacing from a deep underwater dive. There was a message, 3 weeks ago, slipped under my hotel room door. Jungkook blinked. Why didn't you tell me? Because it didn't make sense. It was handwritten, just one sentence. You forgot who helped you rise. No name, no signature. I thought it was a prank or a delusional fan. Jungkook's face twisted. You thought someone threatening you was a fan. Wouldn't be the first time. The silence that fell between them was no longer empty. It pulsed, hot with resentment, confusion, and the weight of unspoken truths. Jungkook turned his back, hands on his hips, fingers twitching. You should have told me, Jimin. I didn't want to make it real, Jimin murmured. But now it is. Now it's crawling into our shows, our stages Jungkook. It's not just me anymore. Jungkook's phone buzzed, and both of them froze. A message, anonymous, no contact name, just one line. Tell him the truth, or I will. The screen went black again. Jungkook looked up at Jimin, who had already turned ghost white. Who the fuck is this? He asked, voice low and vibrating. Jimin didn't answer, not right away. He looked like he was aging by the second. Finally, he sat on the cold metal bench along the wall. He looked up, voice hoarse. There's something I did when I was 19. Something selfish. Jungkook crossed his arms, his stare drilling into Jimin. Go on. I made a deal. Jungkook's jaw clenched. What kind of deal? Jimin swallowed hard. There was this producer, not from Big Hit, independent. He said he had dirt on one of the other members, said he'd release it, unless I gave him something he wanted. What the hell did he want from you? My silence and my favor. He wanted my influence. He wanted me to push for his work to be featured subtly, to talk to people, to give him access. Jungkook stared, expression unreadable. Whose dirt did he have? He asked. Jimin paused, then almost inaudibly he said, Yoongijungkook. Jungkook swore under his breath, stepping away like he couldn't be near Jimin in that moment. Why didn't you tell any of us? He growled. You let him control you. I thought I was protecting everyone, Jimin snapped. I thought I could handle it, but now he's back. And this whole thing it feels like he's calling in the rest of the favor. Jungkook's voice dropped. Or maybe he never left. There was a knock at the door, 3 short raps, then silence. Both of them froze. Another knock, slower this time. Jungkook edged toward it, glancing at the security feed. No one. He opened the door. A flash drive lay on the floor, red casing, no label. He picked it up and turned to Jimin. Do we open it? He asked. Jimin nodded grimly. They plugged it into a secure laptop Backstage. A single video file, no metadata, no timestamp. It opened to grainy, handheld footage of Jimin. He was younger, maybe 18, arguing with someone in a parking garage. The voice was muffled, but it was him. I said I'd do what you wanted, but you leave Yoongi out of this. Then the other man stepped into frame. Older, tall, eyes like oil. You don't make the rules, Jimin. You don't own your fame, not really. The screen cut to black. Back in the present, Jimin's hands trembled. He recorded me, he whispered, all those years ago. Jungkook sat back, staring at the laptop like it had bitten him. They're going to destroy you with this, twist it, say you were blackmailing someone else, or that you've been playing everyone. They'll twist it into betrayal, Jimin said quietly. Jungkook's voice hardened. Then we don't run, we hit back, we find out who's helping him. Jimin looked at him. You don't have to be involved. This was my mistake. Jungkook's expression turned fierce. You think I'm going to walk away now, after what we've survived together? There was a beat of silence. Then, Jungkook added, besides, I've got secrets too. Jimin looked up sharply. What do you mean? Jungkook didn't elaborate. But something in his eyes shifted. Something heavy, something bruised and buried. Another knock. This time, it was Namjoon. His face was tight, furious. What the hell happened out there? He demanded. The media is spinning this like a meltdown, like you crashed someone else's stage on purpose. We're asterisk bleeding asterisk. Jimin opened his mouth, but Jungkook beat him to it. They set him up, Taehyung. This was no accident. Namjoon's brows furrowed. What are you talking about? Jungkook handed him the flash drive. As Namjoon watched the footage, his face darkened. I know this guy, he finally said. He used to hang around the Seoul underground scene, got banned after too many scandals, blackmail, threats. He tried to sink 2 other groups. We thought he disappeared. Well, Jimin said bitterly, he didn't. Namjoon turned to Jimin, voice low. Do you know what this means, Jimin? If this goes public, you're not the only one who goes down. The whole group could be collateral. Jimin nodded slowly. I know. Namjoon exhaled. Then we need to get ahead of it. How? Jimin asked. Namjoon's voice dropped to a whisper. We find out what he really wants, and we make it cost him everything. There was fire in his eyes now. The leader had awoken. Behind them, Jungkook's phone buzzed again. Another message. Greater than, you have 72 hours before the footage goes public. We want him on stage in Paris. Alone, mic on, scripted, no deviation, or we end you all. Jungkook read it aloud. The room fell silent. Paris was in 4 days. They all looked at Jimin. He stood slowly, pale, eyes sharp. Then we give them a show, he said. But not the one they're expecting. Alone, Jimin repeated, his voice dangerously calm. They want me alone on stage. Namjoon nodded once, grim. Mic on, scripted confession, controlled narrative. If you deviate, they release the footage. Jungkook slammed his fist against the table. They're not just blackmailing him, they're trying to publicly execute him. Jimin laughed softly, the sound hollow. So that's it. Years of blood and sweat reduced to a performance of guilt. No, Jungkook snapped, stepping in front of him. You're not doing this by yourself. They made it clear, Jimin replied. If anyone interferes. Let them threaten, Jungkook cut in. His eyes were burning now, wild with a fury he no longer tried to hide. They don't own you. Namjoon held up a hand. Enough. We need strategy, not emotion. Jungkook turned on him. This is asterisk emotion, Taehyung. They're turning his trauma into entertainment. Jimin finally snapped. Stop talking like I'm not here. The room fell silent. Jimin's chest rose and fell fast. I'm tired of being protected like glass. I made this mess. I'll face it. Jungkook stared at him, disbelief cracking into pain. You think standing alone under their spotlight is bravery. It's exactly what they want. Jimin met his gaze. And what do you want? The question hit harder than any shout. Jungkook opened his mouth, then closed it. What he wanted was to grab Jimin, pull him away from every stage, every camera, every cruel demand. What he wanted was selfish, dangerous. I want you alive, Jungkook said finally, with your name intact. That night, Paris glittered outside the hotel windows, oblivious. Jimin sat on the floor of his room, back against the bed, staring at the script they'd received encrypted an hour earlier. Every line was calculated, every pause choreographed. It wasn't a confession, it was a character assassination. Jungkook watched him from across the room. You don't have to read it, he said quietly. I do, Jimin replied. I need to know how they plan to break me. Jungkook crossed the room in 3 steps and ripped the tablet from Jimin's hands. They don't get to define you, he growled. Not with lies, not with half-truths, not with fear. Jimin stood abruptly. Then what's your plan, Jungkook? Because every plan so far ends with someone bleeding. Jungkook hesitated. Then he said it. We tell the truth. Jimin froze. You said it yourself. The truth will drag everyone down. Not if we control it, Jungkook said. Not if we expose asterisk them first. Namjoon joined them minutes later, having overheard enough. You're talking about flipping the narrative live, he said. That's risky. Jungkook nodded. So is silence. Jimin's voice dropped. If I speak freely, they'll release the footage. And if they do, Jungkook said, we'll already have burned their credibility. Namjoon studied them both. You're suggesting we weaponize vulnerability. I'm suggesting we stop running, Jungkook replied. Jimin closed his eyes. Busan, the garage, the fear, the choice he made to protect others at the cost of himself. I don't know if I can survive that stage, Jimin whispered. Jungkook stepped closer. Then don't stand on it alone. The day of the concert arrived like a held breath. Backstage in Paris was eerily quiet, as if the walls themselves were listening. A stage manager approached. 5 minutes, Jimin only, as agreed. Jungkook didn't move. Security tensed. Jimin reached out and grabbed Jungkook's wrist. Trust me, he said softly. Jungkook searched his face, panic flickering beneath resolve. If this goes wrong. It already did, Jimin replied. This is me taking it back. He stepped onto the stage. The lights hit him hard, hot, merciless. The crowd roared, confused, excited, unaware of the war unfolding beneath the music. Jimin lifted the mic. He did not follow the script. I was told to confess tonight, he said, voice steady. But confessions are meaningless without context. The silence was immediate, electric. I was 19 when someone threatened my family, my members, my future. I made a choice born from fear. I protected others by sacrificing myself. Somewhere backstage, Jungkook's breath caught. I won't apologize for protecting my family, Jimin continued. But I will apologize for staying silent for too long. Screens behind him flickered. Footage appeared, not the old video, but something new. Financial trails, messages, names, the blackmailer exposed in real time. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jimin's voice broke, but he did not stop. This industry eats the quiet first, he said. I won't be quiet anymore. Backstage erupted into chaos. Jungkook watched, tears burning, pride and terror colliding in his chest. The truth was out. And for the first time since Busan, Jimin was standing, not as a pawn, not as a shield, but as himself. When the lights finally dimmed and the crowd erupted into thunderous applause, Jungkook didn't wait for permission. He ran. He reached Jimin at center stage and pulled him into his arms, cameras forgotten, consequences irrelevant. Jimin collapsed into him, shaking alive. For once, the spotlight didn't feel like a trap. It felt like release. The world didn't end. It held its breath. The moment Jimin walked off the stage in Paris, dripping sweat and defiance, 100 headlines exploded across the globe like fireworks made of glass, shards of speculation, betrayal, redemption, and rage. Backstage, chaos reigned. He deviated from the contract. You were supposed to keep him on script. They're going to sue. Jimin heard none of it. He was numb, floating just above the noise, high on the terror and liberation of truth spoken aloud. Jungkook caught him as he stumbled. You did it. No, Jimin whispered. We did it. Namjoon stormed into the room seconds later, waving his phone like a torch. You need to see this. On the screen, a video freshly leaked, spreading like wildfire. It wasn't the blackmail footage. It was security cam footage from a rehearsal hall 3 nights ago. Someone slipping a tablet into Jimin's bag, face barely visible. But not invisible enough. Namjoon froze the frame, zoomed. All 3 of them stared. The face was familiar. Taehyung. Jimin's knees buckled. Jungkook caught him again, but this time, his grip was cold. No, Jimin breathed. No, he wouldn't. Namjoon's voice was low, unreadable. We can't jump to conclusions. It's a deep fake, Jimin insisted, eyes wide. It has to be. Then we prove it, Jungkook said, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. An hour later, the team's tech lead confirmed the footage was real. No signs of manipulation. Jungkook paced like a caged animal. Why would he do this? Why now? Jimin stared at the frozen image of Taehyung's face, half-shadowed, caught mid-move. I don't know. He did. Somewhere deep down, beneath the noise, he remembered the night in Tokyo 2 years ago. The argument, the screaming, the ultimatum. You keep protecting everyone else, Jimin. When will it be my turn? And Jimin had said the wrong thing, something that cracked the friendship that had once been untouchable. Now it felt like that crack had split wide open. They found Taehyung 2 hours later, not hiding, but waiting. In the old practice room on the 13th floor, surrounded by mirrors that reflected versions of themselves they barely recognized anymore. He looked up when they entered, calm, almost too calm. Jungkook spoke first. Why? Taehyung blinked slow. You already know. Jimin stepped forward, voice breaking. You set me up. I exposed you, Taehyung corrected. There's a difference. Jungkook lunged, but Namjoon blocked him with an arm. Let him speak, the leader said. Taehyung stood. You think you're the only one who was backed into a corner, Jimin. You think your silence was noble. You made a deal with a devil and never told us asterisk. You don't get to be a martyr. I was trying to protect all of you, Jimin shouted. Liar, Taehyung spat. You were protecting your guilt. The room pulsed with silence. I wanted him gone, Taehyung said. The blackmailer, but you never let me in, so I found another way. I gave them the illusion of power just long enough to set up the fall. Jungkook stared. You worked with them. I led them to believe they had the upper hand, Taehyung snapped. Then I helped you rip it away. Every breadcrumb they followed was mine. Namjoon's jaw clenched. And you didn't think to tell us this plan. It wouldn't have worked if you knew. Jimin's voice cracked. You could have destroyed asterisk me. But I didn't, Taehyung said, stepping closer. Because I still believe in you, but I needed you to understand what it felt like to be left out, to be silenced. A heavy silence fell. Jungkook looked between them, betrayed on every level. You played with fire, he muttered. And I burned for it, Taehyung replied, but I regret nothing. The team fractured that night. Trust doesn't break with a sound. It fractures quietly, under the weight of too many silences, too many unseen glances, too many words left unsaid. They were brothers, but now they were also something else, witnesses to each other's ruin and redemption. The next morning, a new video surfaced, posted anonymously. It was footage of Jimin's confession in Paris, but edited, distorted. The voice was warped, the words rearranged. The narrative, that Jimin had orchestrated everything, that he was the puppet master, the manipulator, the fame-hungry liar. Jimin watched it play on loop, jaw tight. They're not done, he said. Jungkook nodded. Then neither are we. Taehyung stepped into the room. They're planning something bigger, he said. I overheard a name. Namjoon looked up. Whose? Taehyung hesitated. Then he spoke. Min Yoongi. Jimin's heart stopped. Because if Yoongi was involved now, it meant the next chapter wasn't about blackmail. It was war. Episode 5, The Devil You Know. The silence after Taehyung spoke Yoongi's name was thunderous. Jungkook stared at him like he'd lost his mind. That's impossible. Namjoon didn't speak, but his entire posture shifted, tightening, like something inside him had just broken into fragments. Jimin's mouth was dry. You're wrong. I'm not, Taehyung said, his voice low and flat. I saw the messages, encrypted chain. They're using his alias August D. Beta, the one he used back when he produced Off-Grid before we debuted. Jungkook scoffed. Anyone could forge that. No, not this. The phrasing, the timestamps, the private server code. It's him, or someone in his circle. Jimin felt a strange cold rising in his chest, like a tide coming in too fast. Yoongi, the one who used to quietly slip packets of honey into his bag when his throat was sore, who once stayed up all night to rework a song just because Jimin had cried during recording. No, he repeated, it can't be. Namjoon finally stepped forward. If Yoongi's involved, then we've been blind for longer than we thought. The room turned heavy. Jungkook's hands curled into fists. Then let's ask him. Namjoon's voice cracked the air. Not yet. Why not? Jungkook growled. If he's innocent, he deserves to clear his name. If he's not. If he's not, Namjoon interrupted, and we corner him too soon, he'll disappear before we get the whole picture. Taehyung leaned against the wall, eyes dark. There's more. The chain mentioned a location, a drop point, Berlin, 2 days. Jimin looked at him, searching his face for any trace of deceit. Why didn't you tell us sooner? He asked. Because I wasn't sure until now, Taehyung said. And because after what happened in Paris, I didn't know if you'd even listen to me. Jungkook turned away, jaw tight. The damage was done, but the war was only beginning. 2 days later, they were in Berlin. The city was cold, shrouded in sleet and shadows. Their arrival was unannounced. No staff, no entourage, no fanfare. Just the 4 of them moving through the world like ghosts. The drop point was an abandoned railway station on the outskirts. Graffiti-splashed walls, rusted beams, and the faint stench of wet metal. They arrived just after dusk. Jungkook scanned the area. You sure this is it? Taehyung nodded. Yeah. Namjoon checked the time. We split, Jimin with me. Jungkook with T, eyes open. No contact unless confirmed safe. Jimin's nerves vibrated under his skin as they moved through the shadows. Every step felt too loud. Every gust of wind like a whisper. And then he saw him. Yoongi. Standing under the skeletal remains of a collapsed awning, his hood up, cigarette glowing faintly in the dark. He looked thinner, harder. A scar traced the edge of his left cheek, fresh. Taehyung, Jimin's voice was a whisper. Yoongi didn't turn. I was wondering how long it would take you to find me, he said calmly. Namjoon stepped forward, voice sharp. Tell me you're not part of this. Yoongi chuckled, dry and bitter. If I were, do you think I'd be standing here unarmed? You tell me, Namjoon shot back. Jimin stepped between them. Why are they using your name? Yoongi finally turned, and there was something unreadable in his eyes. Because I let them. The words hit like a punch. You what? Jimin whispered. Yoongi looked at him. Do you remember the documentary we were never allowed to release? The one about the early years? The debt, the company threats, the gag orders. Jungkook's voice rang through the comms. We found something, a drive, hidden inside the station. It has the original files. Yoongi nodded once. I gave it to them. I wanted to blow it wide open. Jimin stared at him. You risked all of us. I tried to save all of us, Yoongi said, voice rising. But the company made it clear, silence or exile, so I gave them something else. A trade, my name, my archive. In return, they'd leave asterisk you alone. Jimin shook his head slowly, but they didn't. Yoongi's face crumpled for the first time. No, they didn't. Taehyung and Jungkook appeared from the shadows, the drive in hand. He's telling the truth, Jungkook said. The files are legit, everything from 2014, even older. Taehyung looked at Yoongi, voice cautious. Why didn't you come to us? Because I was ashamed, Yoongi whispered. Because I didn't want you to see me as weak. Jimin stepped forward, close enough to touch him. We never saw you as anything but strong. Yoongi looked up at him. You will, after you see what's on that drive. Namjoon took it. Then we see it together. They returned to the hotel in silence, each of them knowing the next few hours would change everything. The footage was raw, brutal, unedited. Contracts with redacted threats. Audio of execs mocking them behind closed doors. Video of a teenage Jimin crying in a studio bathroom while someone recorded from the next stall. Jungkook turned away, hands shaking. Taehyung sat motionless, eyes wide. Namjoon cursed under his breath. tears in his eyes. Jimin watched every second. And when it ended, he said nothing, just stared at the black screen, breathing hard. "This is why they needed to silence us," Yoongi said. "Because the truth isn't just damaging, it's lethal asterisk." Jimin turned to him. "Then we don't bury it." Yoongi met his gaze. "Are you ready for that war?" "No," Jimin said, "but I'm done waiting to feel ready." Outside, Berlin kept raining. Inside, 7 years of silence cracked open, and the sound it made was louder than any scream. The silence after Taehyung spoke Yoongi's name was thunderous. Jungkook stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "That's impossible." Namjoon didn't speak, but his entire posture shifted, tightening, like something inside him had just broken into fragments. Jimin's mouth was dry. "You're wrong." "I'm not," Taehyung said, his voice low and flat. "I saw the messages, encrypted chain. They're using his alias August D. Beta, the one he used back when he produced Off-Grid before we debuted." Jungkook scoffed. "Anyone could forge that." "No, not this. The phrasing, the timestamps, the private server code. It's him, or someone in his circle." Jimin felt a strange cold rising in his chest, like a tide coming in too fast. Yoongi, the one who used to quietly slip packets of honey into his bag when his throat was sore, who once stayed up all night to rework a song just because Jimin had cried during recording. "No," he repeated, "it can't be." Namjoon finally stepped forward. "If Yoongi's involved, then we've been blind for longer than we thought." The room turned heavy. Jungkook's hands curled into fists. "Then let's ask him." Namjoon's voice cracked the air. "Not yet." "Why not?" Jungkook growled. "If he's innocent, he deserves to clear his name. If he's not." "If he's not," Namjoon interrupted, "and we corner him too soon, he'll disappear before we get the whole picture." Taehyung leaned against the wall, eyes dark. "There's more. The chain mentioned a location, a drop point, Berlin, 2 days." Jimin looked at him, searching his face for any trace of deceit. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" he asked. "Because I wasn't sure until now," Taehyung said. "And because after what happened in Paris, I didn't know if you'd even listen to me." Jungkook turned away, jaw tight. The damage was done, but the war was only beginning. 2 days later, they were in Berlin. The city was cold, shrouded in sleet and shadows. Their arrival was unannounced. No staff, no entourage, no fanfare. Just the 4 of them moving through the world like ghosts. The drop point was an abandoned railway station on the outskirts. Graffiti-splashed walls, rusted beams, and the faint stench of wet metal. They arrived just after dusk. Jungkook scanned the area. "You sure this is it?" Taehyung nodded. "Yeah." Namjoon checked the time. "We split, Jimin with me, Jungkook with T, eyes open, no contact unless confirmed safe." Jimin's nerves vibrated under his skin as they moved through the shadows. Every step felt too loud, every gust of wind like a whisper. And then he saw him. Yoongi. Standing under the skeletal remains of a collapsed awning, his hood up, cigarette glowing faintly in the dark. He looked thinner, harder. A scar traced the edge of his left cheek, fresh. "Taehyung," Jimin's voice was a whisper. Yoongi didn't turn. "I was wondering how long it would take you to find me," he said calmly. Namjoon stepped forward, voice sharp. "Tell me you're not part of this." Yoongi chuckled, dry and bitter. "If I were, do you think I'd be standing here unarmed?" "You tell me," Namjoon shot back. Jimin stepped between them. "Why are they using your name?" Yoongi finally turned, and there was something unreadable in his eyes. "Because I let them." The words hit like a punch. "You what?" Jimin whispered. Yoongi looked at him. "Do you remember the documentary we were never allowed to release? The one about the early years? The debt, the company threats, the gag orders." Jungkook's voice rang through the comms. "We found something, a drive, hidden inside the station. It has the original files." Yoongi nodded once. "I gave it to them. I wanted to blow it wide open." Jimin stared at him. "You risked all of us." "I tried to save all of us," Yoongi said, voice rising. But the company made it clear, silence or exile, so I gave them something else. A trade, my name, my archive. In return, they'd leave *you alone. Jimin shook his head slowly, but they didn't. Yoongi's face crumpled for the first time. No, they didn't. Taehyung and Jungkook appeared from the shadows, the drive in hand. He's telling the truth, Jungkook said. The files are legit, everything from 2014, even older. Taehyung looked at Yoongi, voice cautious. Why didn't you come to us? Because I was ashamed, Yoongi whispered. Because I didn't want you to see me as weak. Jimin stepped forward, close enough to touch him. We never saw you as anything but strong. Yoongi looked up at him. You will, after you see what's on that drive. Namjoon took it. Then we see it together. They returned to the hotel in silence, each of them knowing the next few hours would change everything. The footage was raw, brutal, unedited. Contracts with redacted threats. Audio of execs mocking them behind closed doors. Video of a teenage Jimin crying in a studio bathroom while someone recorded from the next stall. Jungkook turned away, hands shaking. Taehyung sat motionless, eyes wide. Namjoon cursed under his breath, tears in his eyes. Jimin watched every second. And when it ended, he said nothing, just stared at the black screen, breathing hard. This is why they needed to silence us, Yoongi said. Because the truth isn't just damaging, it's lethal asterisk. Jimin turned to him. Then we don't bury it. Yoongi met his gaze. Are you ready for that war? No, Jimin said, but I'm done waiting to feel ready. Outside, Berlin kept raining. Inside, 7 years of silence cracked open, and the sound it made was louder than any scream. You do realize, Namjoon said slowly, that if we release this, we're not just exposing the company, we're tearing down everything we built on its stage. Jimin didn't answer immediately. He sat hunched over the desk in their temporary Berlin hideout, fingers gripping the edge like it was the only thing anchoring him to the present. His voice, when it finally came, was quiet but sharp. Then maybe the stage deserves to fall. Yoongi exhaled, leaning against the far wall, arms crossed. We won't survive this unscathed. Do you think we're still surviving now? Jungkook's voice was raw, incredulous. Every day is a performance wrapped in silence. You know that better than anyone. Yoongi looked at him, guilt creeping into the lines of his face. You're not wrong. Taehyung stood near the window, looking out at the city bleeding neon across wet glass. And if the world turns on us, if army turns on us? Jimin lifted his head. Then at least they'll know the truth. Then at least I won't have to look in the mirror and wonder who the hell I'm lying to anymore. Namjoon rubbed his temple. Okay, so let's play this smart, controlled release. Timing, context. We choose what to share, how to share it, and when. Jungkook stepped forward. And we speak, all of us. Not through press, not through PR, not through handlers, us, face to face. Yoongi gave a humorless chuckle. An uncensored panel with the world's most fragile secrets. I can already see the lawsuits lining up. They can sue, Jimin said, standing. They can threaten, twist, discredit, but they can't stop the avalanche once it starts. Namjoon's eyes met his. Then we start it. They planned for 3 sleepless nights. Every detail mattered. Security, streaming platforms, file backups, statements from former staff who'd been discarded after speaking out, timestamps to verify authenticity. They assembled an unofficial task force, people they trusted outside the system, not fans, not industry allies, survivors. Jungkook was the one who reached out to the press, selecting 2 global outlets willing to air the story raw, no filters, no edits. The decision to go live was unanimous. But what no one prepared for was the betrayal within. The night before the broadcast, while the others prepped in a borrowed studio in Amsterdam, Jimin went missing. At first, no one panicked. He said he needed air, a walk, maybe coffee. His phone was left behind, typical for Jimin. Then 2 hours passed, then 3. Then an untraceable email came through, subject line, "You always run when it matters." Attached, a photo of Jimin. Blindfolded, tied to a chair, still breathing but barely. Jungkook exploded. Where is he? Namjoon grabbed his shoulders, grounding him. We don't know yet. Yoongi pulled the metadata from the image, scanning GPS pings. Northern docks. He's still in the city. Taehyung grabbed his coat. We go now. Yoongi blocked him. We don't rush into a trap. Asterisk, it's Jimin, Jungkook roared. Exactly, Yoongi snapped. Which means they asterisk want us emotional, scattered, predictable. Namjoon was already moving. Then we outthink them. They left the studio in 2 black vans, no lights, no trail. Jungkook rode in silence, every breath a blade in his throat. He had failed Jimin once, years ago, in a way no one else knew. He wouldn't fail him again. The warehouse was an old shipping depot, long since abandoned by trade, but not by ghosts. It reeked of oil, cold steel, and something bitterly familiar, like betrayal. They found Jimin in the center of the hangar, still tied, blood dried under one nostril. His head lifted weakly when he heard their footsteps. But they weren't alone. A man stepped out from behind the columns, the same man Jimin had feared for years, the producer, the ghost from Busan. So predictable, the man drawled, so very noble. Jungkook moved to lunge, but Namjoon caught his arm. The man smiled. You thought this was about one boy's silence, one mistake. You think you're the only idols with ghosts in your closets. You came after the wrong family, Yoongi said coldly. The man laughed. I built your family. No, Jimin rasped from the chair, voice cracked but defiant. We built it despite you. The man's smile dropped. Yoongi stepped forward. This ends tonight. The sound of sirens in the distance cut through the warehouse like knives. Namjoon smirked. Did I forget to mention we called Dutch federal police? Chaos erupted. The man ran. Jungkook chased him down, tackling him before the gates. Fists flew, bones cracked. Jungkook saw red, but Jimin's voice cut through the haze. Kook, stop, he's not worth it. Jungkook froze, panting, bloodied knuckles trembling. By the time the police arrived, the man was in cuffs. Yoongi handed them the drive. This contains more than just blackmail, he told the officer. It's a blueprint of an industry-wide operation, and it ends now. Jimin was freed, carried out by Jungkook, who refused to let go, not even when medics tried to intervene. That night, the livestream went forward. No glitz, no glamour. Just 5 men in a white room, staring into the camera, hearts raw, eyes open. Jimin spoke first. My name is Park Jimin, and I have something to tell you. And the world listened. My name is Park Jimin, and I have something to tell you. The words echoed across millions of screens, through living rooms, train stations, coffee shops, lonely bedrooms. The world stopped pretending it wasn't watching. Jimin didn't read from a script. He didn't need one. He spoke from memory, from pain, from the years he'd buried everything behind perfect smiles and elegant choreography. He told them about the deal in Busan, about the threats, the shame, the decision that never stopped bleeding inside him. He told them how fear is quiet at first, just a whisper you convince yourself is harmless. But eventually it screams, and eventually it wins if you let it. He didn't cry until he mentioned Jungkook. I was afraid he'd look at me differently, that they all would, but instead, he ran through a riot to find me, and hugged me like the world wasn't ending. Jungkook reached across the table, silently took his hand. The feed went on. Yoongi spoke next. Calm, surgical, unapologetic. He named names, dropped timelines, connected corruption with facts too detailed to deny. His voice was like a scalpel, cutting away the infection so the wound could breathe. Namjoon explained the system, how the industry didn't just demand excellence, it demanded silence, loyalty, obedience. He looked straight into the camera and said, We are not here to burn it all down. We're here to rebuild asterisk it, and you can't rebuild anything on rot. Taehyung was last. He didn't say much, but he said enough. I hurt the people I love to protect them. I thought if I played the villain, maybe I could draw the fire away. I was wrong, but I'd do it again, because the people I love are worth the world turning against me. The broadcast ended with nothing flashy. No outro music, no dramatic fade, just their faces sitting in silence as the screen dimmed. And then the avalanche came. Hashtags flooded the internet. #Jimin, you are not alone. We hear you, Yoongi, this is not the end. Armies fought off smear campaigns with receipts and rage. Survivors from other groups stepped forward. Anonymous staff spoke out. The media tried to spin it. Some networks refused to cover it at all. But it was too late. The truth had already taken root. Lawsuits came. Investigations were launched. Executives were fired, arrested, exposed. The company, once a behemoth, crumbled not in one explosive collapse but piece by piece, like a structure realizing it had no real foundation after all. And BTS. They didn't disappear. They went quiet. Not out of shame, but out of asterisk peace. They released a final album, not marketed, not teased, not promoted, just given. It was called *Unscripted*. Each member wrote one track. No filters, no studio polish, just truth. Jimin's song was the last one. A soft piano, his voice barely above a whisper. I stood in a spotlight that felt like a noose. But then someone untied it and held my hand and said, "You don't have to dance alone anymore." The track ends with silence, long, undisturbed. They didn't officially disband. They never said goodbye. But they never needed to. Because something had already ended. And something else, quieter, stronger, freer, had just begun.